This excerpt is from my debut novel, The Genes of Isis, in which Isis is an ancient Egyptian goddess. This excerpt is from the beginning of chapter 30, which is entitled The God Crucible. What you need to know is that Issa is an ancient Egyptian woman with exceptional esoteric powers whose son, Hawk, has died. Also mentioned is Sharon, who is the high priest. You need to know that Duat is the Egyptian realm of the dead, and that the car that's mentioned in the excerpt is an astral body, and that's a light body that can separate from the physical body. And the excerpt reading begins as follows. The moonlight flooded through the window, but Issa was still awake. Once the street cats grew tired of fighting and the hyenas and foxes stopped scavenging, she roused herself and began her descent. Clutching a glow lamp in one hand and Phryme's package in the other, she crept downstairs and stopped in the middle of a corridor, beside a section of wall that would have appeared unremarkable to anyone else, but she knew otherwise. A few words, an arcane utterance, followed by a shimmer of light, and the astral curtain disappeared, revealing a secret door. She stepped through it and into the corridor beyond. She was going to the God Crucible, an occult chamber beneath her house. Its astral protections were such that no one, not even Chiron, suspected its existence. Her breathing was shallow. This was the outer point of no return. A glow lamp threw long shadows down the narrow sloping tunnel. Divided in two, it had steps on one side and a slanting ramp on the other. In front of her on the ground was a piece of white bandage, accidentally torn off the partially mummified body of her son, which she dragged down the ramp before Chiron had arrived. How heavy her son had been. They didn't call it dead weight for nothing. She could still smell the musty odour of the dust particles she'd dislodged. At the bottom of the ramp, the tunnel gave way to a dome-shaped chamber, the God Crucible. Her son's cadaver lay on a bench, and she ran her hand over the embalming bandages. Beside it was a second vacant bench. There she would lie during the ritual she was about to perform. The Anubis embalmers had washed Hawk's body, encased it in natron salt, and mummified it according to all but one of the traditions of the jackal-headed god. The exception being that they had not removed any of his organs. He was still intact. On his chest she laid a scarab pectoral, and into his mouth she placed a length of straw. Opening Phryme's package, she fingered the dark green leaves. She'd used the herb hyssop many times before, and had grown to enjoy its astringent odours. Deftly, she worked the herb into a paste and poured a droplet onto a wafer. Before lying down on the bench, she reread the hieroglyphs plastered on the wall. The spell of the gods, it read, and beneath that the warning, use me wisely, lest I turn and rend thee. This ritual was the ultimate. It was life and death. She had to be dedicated and fulsome, lest the warning would apply to her. She replayed every detail of the ritual in her mind before preparing for the trance. The timing was of the essence. The ritual had to be conducted on the night of the round moon and completed by the rise of the sun. Carefully she adjusted the aperture on the glow lamp to the amount of light hovered on the twilight between astral and incarnate. Lying on the bench, she placed a wafer beneath her tongue, relishing the minty bitterness of the hyssop as it suffused her being. Slowly, mists and vapours of the astral veiled her eyes. She drifted in and out of consciousness as her car eased out of her physical body until she crossed through the veil and entered its natural domicile, the huge edifice of the astral light. Immediately she settled into her familiar astral cloak, the golden lioness. It felt good to be back amongst the warmth of her own kind. Oh, how she'd missed the freedom of the astral light, where she could fly the universe at the speed of thought and take wing through the millions of years in an instant. Through her car, she looked down on herself, lying on the bench. Would this be the last time she'd ever do so? She banished the thought, for now she had to be meticulously correct. Her enemies were doubt, fear, and hesitation. She willed her car towards Diat, the realm of the dead, within the field of rushes, and quickly located the pair of columns at its entrance, the colossal Anubis gates. She expected to find the jackal-headed Anubis operating its gates, but they appeared unguarded. Her voyage to the underworld couldn't be easier. She'd enter Duat, find the Hall of Truth, and rescue Hawk's car. As she approached, a curtain of force shimmered between the gates. On its silky, misty surface appeared 1,000 faces, young and old, happy and sad, and all strangely familiar people she'd met in her lifetime, human and Solari, until only one remained. No, it couldn't be. It was her own face. She was so startled, she nearly ruptured the precious umbilical connection to her physical body. Or was it a mirror? No, it was a replica. It was more than that. It was her double. The guard to Duat was Issa herself. The face stared back at her, inspecting her, a most unnerving experience, to be investigated by oneself. She felt naked to the core. This was the inner point of no return. What do you want? The double even spoke in her own voice. Entry to Duat, she replied. This is the realm of the dead. You're still alive. Go back to where you belong. The face of her double stared back, eyes unflinching, scrutinizing her inner being. There was literally nowhere to hide from herself. No, I can't do that. Let me in. My son must live. Many come to plead for their loved ones, her double said. Don't think you're the first. Enter here at your peril, because you'll never leave. What do you mean? I'm more powerful than a mere guard dog, she scoffed. Let me pass.